Hello, my friends. Younger Next Year. Such a fun book. So it was written by two people, Chris Crowley and Henry S. Lodge. You know, Henry is a doctor, an MD, and so they each kind of take different sections and kind of give their perspective. Now, Chris was a patient of Henry and kind of found all this new information and lifestyle change as, you know, from being his patient, because Henry was kind of tired of this, like, just maintaining illnesses. He wanted lifestyle change that improved life quality and longevity and all these things. And so he started teaching his patients these things in his book, and has done wonders for people. Now, in reality, it's very simple, but he goes into a lot of like medical terminology and biology and things to explain like why these things are so important to your body and your health and your longevity. And the nurse in me ate it up. I had a great time reading, especially Dr. Lodge's sections. But it kind of gives you the two perspectives: the healthcare worker and the patient. So I think a lot of people will relate to one or the other or both. So Younger Next Year, fabulous book. Let me read a few sections as they say. So Dr. Lodge says that you've got to basically have three things. You've got to exercise, you've got to be committed, you've got to be connected to others, and you have to have something to care about and get involved with. It doesn't sound, apparently it doesn't have to matter that much, like to the world's well-being, what you're engaged in, but you got to have something that gets you up every day and excited and get your brain thinking and involved with, the community or service or whatever it is. So you got to exercise, you've got to be connected to people, and you've got to have something to care about and be involved with. It is simply a fact that the average American who hits 50 or 60 in reasonable health is likely to live well into his or her 80s. So obviously there's a bunch of factors that bring down like average life expectancy, right? Like car crashes, random illnesses, just accidents of every kind, right? That decrease the life expectancy. And then the biggest problem is our lifestyles, right? Like here in America, especially, it's like once we retire, even at work, a lot of our jobs now are like sitting at desks, which is really bad for your body and longevity. And then we retire and do more sitting around and eating and whatever, right? So it's like these are tough. So if you don't do some of those things, you should be able to live a really healthy life into your 70s or 80s or even 90s. And he talks about, people like skiing and things into their 80s. So not just a healthy life as in you get up out of bed every day and you don't need assistance walking around your house. He's talking about people like hiking and skiing and running and things like in their 70s, 80s, sometimes 90s. So exercise, nutrition, and commitment. The biggest one and the biggest change for most people is exercise. It is the secret to great health. You should exercise hard almost every day of your life, say 6 days a week, and do strength training, lift weights 2 of those 6 days. Exercise is the great key to aging. So this is where it gets exciting for me as he starts digging into why this is critical. So decay is optional. He says there's a critical distinction between aging and decay that you need to keep in mind from here on in. Aging is inevitable, but it's biologically programmed to be a slow process. Most of what we call aging and most of what we dread about getting older is actually decay. That's critically important because we are stuck with real aging, but decay is optional. Decay happens, we're going to get into that, but basically your body has all these balancing hormones and mechanisms to keep everything in homeostasis, right? So like everything's happy. You get a little bit too much sodium, all these mechanisms go into action, and you get rid of a little sodium so that your blood balance is good, and your heart, your sodium potassium pumps have the right amount of sodium versus potassium, etc. Right? Homeostasis, you want to stay correct. So when it comes to aging, there's some specific cytokines he talks about, but in fact, all chronic stress works the same. So he's talking about stress on the body, right? He's getting into the a lot of this book he goes through we evolved over billions or millions of years, right? And everything sort of built upon each other, right? Like from little microbes that developed new things, right? And here we are as humans. And basically that each new mechanism helped us survive a certain state of being, right? But it happens slowly. So the fact that we now live in an information age where you can make money from your bedroom, your body is not meant for that. It didn't adapt to that it's not going to adapt to that overnight, right? So we are programmed to live, as he says, in the savannah desert, right? Where the seasons are extreme and it's like feast or famine kind of conditions. And the people that lived in that area would walk or run somewhere around 10 miles a day with little bursts of intense energy, right? Like sprints and lifting and dragging and whatever. So your body needs that, and it thinks that's the communication system of your body. So stress also plays an important role. In fact, all chronic stress works the same way. Chronic stress, whether physical or mental, tells your body that the environment has changed for the worse and that you're in for a long-haul survival challenge. Low-grade depression combined with physical decay is your body's preferred state of health for this situation. The thing is, the signals for this particular state of health are pretty much the lifestyle of the standard American retirement. Being sedentary, withdrawing from social contact, and eating everything you can get your hands on. These are the primary signals of famine or winter, and your body will respond. With the unerring certainty born of billions of years of survival, it will respond to your behavior. Being sedentary is the most important signal for decay. So if you want to prevent decay, you have to do the opposite, right? You've got to trigger, he'll explain it later, you have to trigger C6, and that's what causes building and growth. The good news is that the decay signal, though constant, is weak. If you don't send any signal to grow, decay will win, but even a modest signal to grow, a decent workout, even a good stiff walk will drown out the noise. Thing is, you need to do something every day to tell your body it's springtime. Keep in mind that decay is not biological aging. Decay is the dry rot caused by our modern sedentary life. Decay is optional, remember that, and it's what you do that changes it. He kind of talks about how every cell in your body is replaced within a certain amount of time, right? Bones, maybe a couple of years. Like your blood cells are replaced every 3 months. Your muscle fibers, everything, right? So there's good reason for these things because you're always breaking down every cell in your body and then rebuilding it. It does a couple things, prevents illnesses and cancers and things like that, because any cell that's been around for a while is going to get destroyed and then a new one comes in. Sometimes that doesn't work out, and that's where we get like cancer, right? But most of the illnesses, the majority, can be prevented with a good lifestyle. Now, that's obviously debatable for a lot of people on what's the correct lifestyle. And I'm not even going to get into that. But basically, he gives you a good blueprint in this book. What's a good lifestyle? Like, cut out the junk food, eat less of everything. If you're going to eat meat, eat fish. Lots of fruits and vegetables, all you can handle of fruit and vegetables. Cut out like the white flours and really, the refined flour and stuff. Tons of fiber, right? So it's pretty basic. I mean, most people agree with those things. So the trick, of course, is to grow more than you throw out. And this is where exercise comes in. It turns out that your muscles control the chemistry of growth throughout your whole body. The nerve impulse to contact a muscle also sends a tiny signal to build it up, creating a moment-to-moment chemical balance between growth and decay within the muscle. Those two same signals are then sent to the rest of your body. If enough of the growth signals are sent at once, they overwhelm the signal to atrophy, and your body turns on the machinery to build up the muscle. Heart, capillaries, tendons, bones, joints, coordination, and so on. So exercise is the master signaler, the agent that sets hundreds of chemical cascades in motion each time you get on that treadmill and start to sweat. It's what sets off the cycle of strengthening and repair within the muscles and joints. It's the foundation of positive brain chemistry. It leads directly to the younger life we are promising. With its heightened immune system, its better sleep, its weight loss, insulin regulation, fat burning, its improved sexuality, its dramatic resistance to heart attack, stroke, hypertension, Alzheimer's, disease, arthritis, diabetes, high cholesterol, depression, yada, yada, yada. Exercise is like the key. That's the ticket. They address in this book that obviously not everyone is an athlete or sees themselves as a fit person or someone that's going to go to the gym every day, but you have to get involved with something. Like, okay, you're not an athlete, but do you like to spend time outdoors? Like, make it a habit to hike every morning, or play tennis, or ride a bike, or do something. Like, don't just go pound it out on a treadmill every day. Like, do things that are enjoyable to you. Like, I know Richard Branson plays tennis and kiteboards almost every day. So, like, find what's fun to you, that's physically active, that will cause your body to trigger the C10, which is, enough physical exertion to basically sweat for a while, right? Cytokine 6, or C6 for short, is the master chemical for inflammation, quote unquote, decay. And cytokine 10, or C10, is the master chemical for repair and growth. C6 is produced in both the muscle cells and the bloodstream in response to exercise, and C10 is produced in response to C6. This is your body's brilliant mechanism for coupling decay and growth. C6 actually triggers the production of C10. Decay triggers growth. However, C6 is always at play. That's the tide he talks about in this book that's always coming. So whether you're sleeping, you're awake, whatever you're doing, there's a dull tide of C6, decay. If you exercise or exert enough, energy and push your muscles and burn enough calories and things, then the C6 increases and then triggers C10, which is like, okay, now that we've destroyed all this stuff, we got to come build it back up better and stronger. So that's the whole thing. Like, that's one of the major bases of this book that he talks about throughout the whole thing, is that you've got to constantly, day in and day out, trigger C10, okay, the build and grow. At rest, only 20% of your blood flow moves through your muscles. In a trained athlete, that rises with exercise to 80%. Like, that's where you get all the renewing energy and growth building blocks. So you want to increase this and trigger the C10 and help it get to where it needs to go. Play the music. When we are sedentary, the devil does indeed find work for idle muscles. There is a steady, slow drip of inflammation, but not enough to turn on C10. That explosion of growth comes only with the surge of C6 you get with exercise. Another depressing point, you secrete more background C6 as you age, no matter what you do. Dust in the grooves. Sad but true, the tide sets against you. Chronic emotional stress also produces a trickle of background C6. Loneliness, boredom, apathy, all those things, right? When you exercise, you get a high enough level of C6 to trigger C10. You get to play the music of growth. It's not hard. You just need to become a daily C10 guy or girl. Exercise every day, at least enough to sweat, and you'll be fit, guaranteed. So it's like, it's cool. Like, it sort of gives you like the insight of, like, we're not trying to be trained athletes here. We're just trying to stay well, right? Like, if you're not into exercise for exercise sake or for sports sake or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's not the goal anyway. The goal is to be well, to be healthy throughout your life and enjoy the last third of your life with a high quality of life. I've talked to you guys so many times before. Like, I'm a nurse. I go into these nursing homes and things, and the quality of life for so many of them, the people in there, is really poor, and a lot of them are not that old, like 50s, 60s, early 70s, and they like their quality of life has been junk for years. Some of them, it's unfortunate accidents or whatever, but like some of them, it's lifestyle, and it's just been a bad lifestyle for a long time, and now their lifestyle just got worse, right? And it's just like, you can avoid that. Like they'll live in I know people that have been in these facilities for decades, and basically they go from their bedroom to their wheelchair to the dining room to their bedroom, and like that is not how I want to live the last third of my life, and I don't think you do either. So become a C10 person, right? Think of it that way. Researchers gave 10,000 men 2 stress tests 5 years apart. At the end of the study, the fittest men had a third the mortality of the least fit. And even more encouraging, those who had been sedentary at the first stress test but fit by the second, those who had turned their lives around in those 5 years, cut their mortality rate in half. For every additional, cut your risk of dying by half. It's hard to argue with that. Even more encouraging, the benefit was on a continuum. So getting into better and better shape cut mortality more and more. For every additional minute the guys could go on the stress test, there was an 8% reduction in mortality. Huge benefits. When you walk, your body predominantly recruits endurance units and rotates through them, so each one gets a rest period between steps, which means that each unit gets only a fraction of exercise you think you're giving it. Certainly not enough stress to generate the power of regeneration of C10. As you start to run, your body uses more endurance units with each step. Each unit may be used every third step now, and that's enough stress to trigger high levels of C6 and then C10. If you're running up a hill hard enough to go beyond the capacity of your endurance units, your body adds in strength units. The longer you run, the less rest time the endurance units get. The more strength you demand, the less rest the strength units get. At some point, you will push them beyond the recovery cycles. They will fatigue, and the fatigue will damage them. Taking them to fatigue is what turns on the surge of C6, the good stress of exercise that turns on C10. By the way, this is why you have to sweat when you do aerobic exercise. At low levels of demand, your endurance cells alternate too much to get fatigued. This is also why you have to push to the point of muscle fatigue with weights, to that burning feeling in your muscles that most of us hate and would skip it if it was. So done right, you will drain them of all their energy and then force them to contract a few more times. That's the critical part. That's how you intentionally damage your muscle cells. And that's what you want. Like you want to damage your muscle cells and cause regrowth. Stronger, better, more. He says you can double the amount of mitochondria in your muscles with, over an extended period of time of exercising daily. Mitochondria is what helps you use that oxygen for your muscles. And so basically it's if you can think of that, like that's the way you get more energy for your day. Like you can do more things longer with more joy on less sleep because you can process and use that oxygen more efficiently and effectively. This is why you shouldn't do strength training 6 days a week. If you've done it right, you've done some real damage. Unlike endurance units, which recover from aerobic exercise overnight, your strength units need to enter a 48-hour repair cycle. 2 days a week of strength training is enough. 3 days is the maximum. He says endurance or aerobic training is what makes you live long and healthy. Strength training is what makes it worth living, right? So that like you have, because that's where like coordination comes from, strength and being able to, carve down a hill in your old age on skis, or, move the furniture and do the things you want to do. If you trip, catch yourself because you have that strength in your leg, and right. So that's where coordination and things come from, but it's the endurance that will give you the longevity and healthy life. I thought this was hilarious. This whole book has one core message: either you grow or you decay. And sure enough, that's the essence of biology of nutrition as well. Put simply, the chemistry behind obesity involves decay. Shutting down every system you possibly can so that you can survive winter, drought, or famine. The fact that there is enough to eat today, or even vast excess, doesn't change this. If you are sedentary, your body reads the bacon cheeseburger as the carcass of the animal that starved to death just before you. your last gasp chance to gorge. And here's an interesting thing. This biological response is turned on by our old friend C6 and turned off by the C10 of exercise. Scientists have known this for only a few years, but it makes perfect sense. C6 and C10 are, after all, the fundamental messages of growth and decay. So decay is optional. That's the last thing I'll read, even though there's a million highlighted pieces in this book because I loved it. Younger next year. So a good motivation for anyone to start exercising every day. So as we approach the new year, and everyone makes this goal to go to the gym every day, right? And then by the end of January, the gym is empty. Think of it in a new light. Like, think of it with new perspective. Like, your goal is to trigger C10 every day, so that as you get older and older and older, in this, the last third of your life, you'll maintain such good health and quality of life, and that you can do whatever it is you want to do. I know people like this who have lived, in their 80s and skied every year. I live in Utah, so I witness the skiers and snowboarders and things, and it's possible, it happens, but you cannot fall into the trap of a sedentary life, which is supposedly glorious, because it's not. I see that side of it far too often. So anyway, go get the book, Younger Next Year. I'll put a link below so you can purchase from Amazon if you would like. I always get a small commission from that at no extra charge, so I appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you want more book reviews. I also help people understand the methods to become financially independent and time and location freedom while they continue to earn money. So if any of these things are of interest to you, please follow us. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.